everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations and to the monthly forecasts. Hope you're doing well. And in today's video, I'm going to be helping you understand a little bit about aspects and phases. And this is my little piece on how I do my little forecasts in a unique way. So aspects and phases is a way that evolutionary astrology uses to measure the cycles that planets have in relationship to themselves, okay, and to other planets, pardon me. So what happens is you've got two planets, say for instance Pluto and Venus, and what evolutionary astrology will do is they will take those two archetypes and measure the relationship that they have between each other, and then from that measurement and from that relationship establish what type of phase and what type of evolutionary condition those planets carry within each other. And it's really fascinating because when you begin to measure your planets in relationship to other planets, you begin to see the development of how you actually experience your life through these aspects and phases. Now, I've got a little slideshow over here quickly that I want to show you in terms of what is the philosophy behind aspects and phases and what type of methodology do we use to actually measure this, okay? So I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so what you're looking at is two pictures. On the left-hand side over here, you can see this is about life itself, okay? The first thing that we understand is that everything is in a cyclic formation. Everything is moving through time and space. And so because of that, it is not separate that when you look at two planets or three planets in a birth chart, that they are also in this life cycle. There is a life cycle that each planet has. And each planet in relationship to another is reflecting where that life cycle is. It's no different than measuring a new moon, a first quarter moon, a last quarter moon, and a full moon. Exactly the same thing. We just do it with planets now. And you can see that when you have a new moon, there's a new intention. When you have a full moon, we're coming into a halfway completion cycle. Again, phasal relationship and life, how it's evolving. The picture on the right-hand side reflects to us that everything is in relationship to everything else. Everything. Okay, it's like a revolving door. The moment that you walk through a revolving door, as you're moving outward, somebody from the outside is coming inward, and that door is revolving us around it. And it's like as one energy moves outward like that, another one's moving in. And everything is in a consistent relationship with everything else. And so because of that, it's natural for us to understand that when we look at planets in our birth chart, there's a natural cycle in terms of awareness, and there's a natural phasal relationship that exists between planets. And when we measure that, what we get is this beautiful harmonic dynamic of where we are in our consciousness and how that has been developed. Okay? And the next thing is how do we actually then establish and what methodology do we use in order to understand these aspects and phases? Well, in evolutionary astrology, you work with the planets, okay? So you've got Mercury, Venus, you've got Mars, you've got Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, okay? And then you have the sun. Now, in this diagram, everything revolves around the sun. So when you measure something in evolutionary astrology terms, there's always a focal point, right? There's a focal point, and there's always a planet that's in relationship to that focal point. And the way that you understand what focal point you have to look at, you understand the relationship that these planets have to the sun. So the sun will always be a focal point, okay? That's so. When you say, for instance, want to understand the phasal relationship between Neptune and Jupiter, well, then it has a little bit of a different cycle, but still the same. When you measure planets in relationship to each other, you're measuring the fastest moving planet in relationship to the slowest moving planet. The fastest moving planet in relationship to the slowest moving planet. So therefore, if I had to say, for instance, ask you, what is the phasal relationship between Jupiter and Neptune? You would go, Jupiter is the fastest moving planet, Neptune's the slowest moving planet, and so therefore, Neptune would be your focus point, because the slowest moving planet is always the focus point. And that's the key that I want you to take away from this conversation. When you measure aspects and phases in your chart, you're measuring two things. One, if you're measuring it against the sun will always be a focus point. So you're always looking for the focus point. And that will always be the sun if you're comparing it against something. Secondly, if you're comparing two planets with each other, you always measure the slowest moving planet as the focus point. So what happens now is you go, okay, I've identified that Neptune is the slowest moving planet. Jupiter's in relationship to it. And so then how do I understand how this works? Very simple. You get a little chart. And this is courtesy of the Evolutionary Astrology glossary, an ebook. And as you can see here on the chart, you've got this whole entire thing. New phase, crescent phase, first quarter phase, gibbous phase, all these phases. And each phase represents an aspect of development. So what you would do is you would take your slowest moving planet and put it at the 0. You would take your fastest moving planet and mathematically calculate the degrees of separation. Okay, so if Neptune's here and Jupiter, say for instance here, you would see that Jupiter is exactly 90 degrees, 90 clicks away from Neptune. And by understanding that phasal relationship, you would go, okay, it's a crisis in action square. And this is what I love about it so much. When we look at squares in astrology, we're like, oh, it's a square. But in EA, there's two types of squares. There's a crisis in action square and a crisis in consciousness square. And they're remarkably different in the sense. Okay, so you can actually try and read your chart. So, oh, I've got Pluto square Mars as an example. The way that Pluto square Mars is going to work in your chart, if it was crisis in consciousness versus crisis in action, are going to be remarkably different. Now, when you have that power within your own awareness to apply that to your chart, you can actually see what you're specifically looking at in terms of your evolutionary development. And it's really, really fascinating. So the next time you begin to understand your chart in terms of aspects and phases, I highly encourage you to learn about aspects and phases, to go and investigate it. And part of my astrology school, I actually teach this when I educate anybody that's wanting to understand evolutionary astrology. So this is something that when you really want to get into astrology, it's something you don't like miss, because it's so empowering. I'll give you a quick example again, just before we jump into this, okay? Let's say, for instance, I have Jupiter and I'm measuring Mars and Jupiter, okay? We know that Jupiter is the slowest moving planet in relationship to Mars. So Jupiter stands there, and we will say that Mars is exactly 300 degrees, okay, away from Jupiter. In other words, Mars has gone all the way around the astrology chart like that because it's moving in that motion, and it gets all the way to that 300 degrees over there. Now, Mars is what is called in a last quarter phase in relationship to Jupiter. So when you look at Mars and Jupiter in the chart and you understand that phasal relationship, you can actually see that the soul's desires in this lifetime, this is the evolutionary astrology, the soul's desires in this lifetime are actually evolving through individuating, in other words, finding and breaking out of the mold of belief systems that they used in the past and allowing us to see perspectives from different unique points of views. That's the way that Mars and Jupiter, in a very plain way, would be operating in somebody's chart. Now, you come into a world that is very like homogenized and very sort of like, this is how truth is and this is what it's got to be. And you put somebody in that's natural tendency is to not follow those rules. Can you begin to see the way that we as human beings are so complex? That's why we have a lot of people in the world saying, well, I'm an atheist, because most of them have got phasal relationships that are breaking down, that are not listening to the general consensus. How much do we accept other people for having their own evolutionary degree? We don't understand it, so therefore we judge it. And this is the type of dynamics that we can get into when we understand more of who we are as a human race to alleviate the chaos that we've got. Food for thought.
Hello, my Libra friends, and welcome to your sun sign forecast for the month of March 2017. Hope you're well. And I really hope you enjoyed the introduction video around the nature of aspects and phases and how evolutionary astrology uses this method to track the nature of our evolution through the cycles that the planets have in relationship to each other. Now, I actually teach that as well, by the way, in the astrology schools that I have. And if you're interested in wanting to participate, on the 11th of March, I actually am hosting an astrology school. So in the description below, you can check out, there's a link to sign up for that. Otherwise, if you feel like you want to ask me any questions about the process, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond to you and help you on your way to, learning astrology as well. Okay. Let's have a look at what's actually going on for you this month, my Libra friends. And I feel that, of course, we'll start with Pluto. Pluto represents to us the unconscious emotional empowerment that we're all going through, the desires. And of course, for you, Libra, you're learning about your new self-identity, okay? Since 2008, you've been basically going through an intense process of liberation and deconditioning around your home, around the nature of where your home is and what it symbolizes to you. And Pluto's been really forcing you in on yourself to have to become self-reliant in this area, in this emotional dynamic. And of course, this is natural, that we all have to, at some point in our lives, have to re-establish our emotional connection to life as a way of seeing us in different ways. And for you, Libra, this is happening for you on a big level. So if we go ahead and look at the month, I mean, for me personally, I feel everything is really about this Venus retrograde. This Venus retrograde is going to be playing out in a very intense way with all the cycles. And if you watch the introduction video, you'll know now that Mars and Uranus are in a new phase relationship, and Mars and Venus are in a balsamic phase. Mars and Uranus are in balsamic phase. So you can really see just by those symbols that there's a sense of new direction available for us, but we're still just completing some of the stuff from the past. So as we go through this month, you'll start to notice how we transition from what we were doing in the past to instinctually feeling a new direction. So for you, Libras, this is all about your self-identity. And of course, Jupiter playing out in your first house is exploring and expanding your new sense of identity. Okay, taking risks. Jupiter's about giving you an opportunity to really explore your new philosophy as it connects with your sense of identity. Okay, and so naturally speaking, with Jupiter in Libra, as we go through the March, you'll see here, right? We have Venus retrograde, as you can see. And then on the 9th of March, Mars enters Taurus. And this is significant because Mars, now in the sign of Taurus, Taurus reflects the inner relationship. Venus co-rules Taurus and Libra, right? The inner needs that you have and the outer needs. Okay, how do you relate to other people relative to your own inner needs? And so Mars is now going to pioneer this inner need basis for you. And it's going to move through your 8th house. So you're going to look around you, you're going to look around loss, you're going to see things needing to be letting go. Sharing and inclusion are going to be big themes for you. And you're going to learn to empower yourself through recognizing not only your own personal limitations, but how your own sense of abundance in yourself is freely available to share. Okay? So on the 9th, like I said, Mars goes into Taurus. And on the 12th of March, we've got a full moon that's taking place. And this is a big thing. The full moon that's going to happen for us is going to reshift the way in which we move forward. And this is how this is going to work. On the 25th, 26th of February, we had the solar eclipse in Pisces, okay? And it brought with us this intense process of, or cycle of letting go and cycle of completion. And just like a book, it contains, when you read a book, you contain a lot of insights, a lot of information that you found that was useful, right? But when you finish the book, you don't necessarily strap the book to your body as a way of remembering insights. You actually just let the book go, kind of put it down, and you go on with your day. And part of that process is recognizing that those insights are stored within you. So the process here, the experience here is that as we transition out of the solar eclipse, Pisces, new moon, into the full moon, we'll be developing the integration of these insights. We'll begin to develop the integration and how those insights are being infused in this new self-direction that we're about to embark on. Okay, so it's a very significant full moon that's happening for us in the 20-degree Virgo. And on the 13th, something really amazing happens. We've got Mercury entering Aries, but not really. Mercury enters Aries, And that is the first step in which the new direction is veering for us. So not only do we now have these new insights happen, we also have the mental structures, mind, Mercury, move into Aries saying, okay, we're done with the Pisces stuff. Let's move in the new direction. Let's have these instinctual thoughts. Let's pioneer. Let's try things out. And as you're doing that, you're slowly but surely readjusting and reshaping the nature of the Venus retrograde. Your values are changing. Your instinctual sense of identity within yourself is changing and adjusting. Okay. And then on the 20th of March, if we go over to the 20th over here, you can see, right, Saturn conjuncts the moon and the sun now begins to join everybody in Aries, right? And of course, now this is the process of the mind joining Aries, the insights joining Aries, now the illumination. Now the actual sun moves into this thing, giving us this breath of fresh air to say, okay, let's begin this new journey. Let's start this new experience for us. Let's go and explore. Let's be pioneers. And pioneering, of course, is the Sagittarius Aries connection. And here's the connection. All of that stuff in Aries, and then the moon on Sag, right? We're going to pioneer this new philosophy. We're going to get in touch with how we are looking at our philosophy and saying, is this what I want? No, that's what I want. So this is how I'm going to experience it. That's how I'm going to grow. And of course, for you, everything is all about the home. Everything's all about the new way of living for yourself. And of course, the expansion of your sense of identity, Jupiter in the first house. And then on the 22nd, this is more of a warning place. Pluto will conjunct the moon, and huge T-squares will be taking place in the sky at that stage. And the purpose of this is to understand that we need to finally let go. We need to finally break down all of the emotional and conscious attachments. So the 22nd is about that process of the hammer hitting the glass and saying, right, that's it. Now the final process of mutation needs to take place, and we pay attention to that in our lives. We look at it. We see where is there emotional things dying for us that is allowing for new space for our new pioneering attitude to be present with us. And of course, this is all about like your sense of relationships, relating. All of this is happening in your solar 7th house. So relationship dynamics is being redefined for you. Okay, Libra. And then on the 27th of, actually on the 25th, just before we have the new moon that's taking place in Aries, the moon conjuncts the south node. And did you notice over here, the sun and Venus have now switched places. Okay, look here. The 25th, it switches places, and now we have the sun moving over the Venus archetype. It's now finally letting go of all of the things that happened on the 22nd, and the moon conjuncts the south node to say, right, let it go. It's done. Self-acceptance, self-forgiveness. That was the path. We're on a new journey right now. And then that will promote the seeds for the new growth that's going to happen with us. Look at the moon and the sun. New moon happening for us 27th to 28th of March. And of course, that is the transition from how we began this month and how we're going to end this month. We began this month with everything about growing with maturation and frustration. And we end this month with, right, let's go. This is our new direction. Let's explore it. This is where we are. And you would need to speak to your Aries friends to get some courage in you. You need to speak to a lot of your Aries friends to tell them to ask you, or should I say, I haven't had my water yet, so my throat's a little bit dry at this stage. But you ask all your Aries friends, like, hey guys, how do you do this? How do you get your courage? How do you just pioneer? And they'll give you that inspiration, that sense of this has just got to be done. We just got to go. And it's exciting times. It's exciting times for everybody that's got this deep inner yearning to be in a new direction. And finally, on the 30th of March, of course, we'll have the Pluto and Jupiter square, and that will take place at exact, there we go, Pluto is at 19 degrees, and of course, Jupiter's at 19 degrees. And that just simplifies for us that this is about the complete and utter deconditioning cycle around the expectations, the new way of relating to ourselves, and the social attitudes that we have towards these new directions. So a very powerful month for us, I must admit. Okay, my Libra friends, I hope that you have a fantastic month. And don't forget, if you are still interested in learning astrology, my classes start on the 11th of March, and I hope to see you there, okay? Take care, guys. Bye.